Hey there, I'm Michael Williams, your island chef. Welcome to my kitchen. Today, we're gonna work on a few recipes, 3. We're gonna start off with a Swiss muesli, then we're gonna move on to a 24-hour whole wheat, no-knead bread. We're gonna finish it off with some orange creamsicles. Now, all 3 of these recipes, they're my usual, nutritious, healthy stuff, but they're geared towards some very special kids that I got to meet just recently. In fact, they're organ donor recipients, and you might be interested to find out that April's Organ Donor Awareness Month. That's why we went down to the atrium and met the CEO from the David Foster Foundation and some very special people who are involved with them. Let's go check it out. All right, so we're down here in the atrium with a pretty special group of people. We've got Evan and Cohen, who are transplant recipients, and we've got Dawn, who is a living donor. Pretty special. I think that's really fantastic. In fact, Mike Ravenhill is the CEO of the David Foster Foundation, and he might be able to tell us a little bit more about that. So, Mike, why don't you tell us exactly what the David Foster Foundation is all about?
The David Foster Foundation has 2 purposes. One is to provide financial assistance to families of children that require major organ transplants, and we pay for all the non-medical expenses: food, clothing, transportation, accommodation, mortgages, and so forth. The second is to create an awareness and an education of the need to become a registered organ donor.
Right, yeah. So I imagine organ donors are probably your biggest challenge, the hardest thing to find.
Yes, they are hard to find, but even more importantly is trying to find people to become registered organ donors. Mm-hmm. In Canada, over 4,500 people are on the registered, are waiting for organ donors. And in British Columbia alone, it's over 650 people are waiting today to receive a major organ transplant.
So, Canadians are compassionate, caring folks. How do we stack up to the rest of the world in terms of, people willing to donate their organs?
That's a great question. Of all developing countries, Canada has one of the worst organ donor registration rates in the world.
Really?
We actually are, on average, about 14% of Canadians are registered organ donors. Okay. So when you actually look at that as a percentage, it's a very poor percentage. We need to change that.
So that's, I find that really surprising, honestly, just, Canada, everything else you know and think about Canada. So what are we going to do? How do we change that?
Well, one of the ways is by the David Foster Foundation partnering with national partners, regional partners, and local partners.
Right.
And in this case, in the month of April, being Organ Donor Awareness Month, the David Foster Foundation is going to be partnering with Grocer.
So actually I noticed that Grocer is going to be donating a portion of their sales all through the month of April, and there's also a raffle that's happening. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that's a great, another partnership that the David Foster Foundation is in with WestJet. So WestJet has provided 2 tickets anywhere where WestJet flies for $5 a ticket, and all the proceeds will go to awareness and education of the need to become a registered organ donor, which is our campaign that we're doing with Grocer in the month of April.
That sounds amazing. I would like to go anywhere in the world, anywhere WestJet would fly.
So would I.
Yeah. So it sounds like you guys are doing some fantastic work. It's a huge, immense project. How many families have you helped over the years? It's 30 years now?
Yeah, this is our 30th anniversary for the foundation.
Yeah.
And we originally started just locally and then went nationally, so from coast to coast. And we've helped over 1,000 families in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And we have 2 of our superstars here today with us.
Evan and Cohen.
Evan and Cohen. Evan is a double heart transplant recipient.
Right.
She had her first heart transplant when she was just after she was born.
Yeah.
And her second one when she was 8 years old.
Which heart do you like better?
I like the one that I got when I was 8 years old.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Now, I noticed that you've got a Fitbit on your wrist there. What's that for?
To help me get exercise so I can keep my heart healthy.
Exercise is important for everybody's heart, right?
You're right.
Awesome.
And then we have Cohen, who received his kidney when he was 3 years old from Don Davidson, a family friend, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but amazing story as well.
So, Cohen, I have a question for you. What's your favorite thing to do at school?
Gym.
Gym? Why? What do you do in gym?
Run around.
Ah, you like running around?
Yeah.
Awesome, me too. Maybe we can run around when we're done this. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right. I understand you're a police officer, Don, is that right?
I am.
Yeah, and so not only did you keep the community safe, but you did something really special for Cohen. You were a living organ donor. What made you decide to do that? What prompted you to sign up to be an organ donor?
Well, my wife and Cohen's mom have been friends for a long, long time.
Oh, okay.
And when I heard Cohen was sick,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you could be a living donor for an organ. I thought it was only for deceased people,
Right,
near
yeah.
deceased people.
Yeah.
So we were at a family barbecue, and I know Cohen was sick,
Yeah.
and it was Cohen's aunt, Stephanie, came over from Australia, and I met her for the first time, and she was telling me that she was here for the organ donor.
Right.
And that's the first time, I'm embarrassed to say, that I knew that a living person could donate an organ.
Right.
So once Stephanie told me about what she was doing, I thought that was really cool, neat. And then it wasn't too long after that that I heard that Stephanie wasn't able to be a donor
Okay.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought, geez, it's a no-brainer. I
Yeah.
could do that. I stepped up and
So then you went
I
through,
went through the
some
process.
testing.
I went through the
and-
process
Yeah.
of blood work, some blood work. There's about 3 stages of blood work that I have to go through with the local hospital here,
Yeah.
just to see if I'm compatible to be a donor,
Yeah.
and then compatible with Cohen.
And they determined that you are, and Cohen's now got one of your kidneys.
He does.
Yeah, that is just, that's just uncomprehendable to me. I think that's really amazing.
It's great to see Cohen the way he is now, and felt good to do it.
Yeah.
It really felt good to do that. It's amazing to be part of it.
Honestly, I can't imagine. I really can't. It's incredible.
Well, and it's people like Dawn who inspire us each and every day at our foundation. It started 30 years ago by David's mother calling David and David making a decision to do something to change somebody's life. Today, you hear a story of Dawn who affected Cohen, who saved Cohen's life. There was a person, 2 people, who actually gave their hearts to Evan
Yeah.
to keep Evan alive, to save her life. We can't forget those that gave their lives in order to help people like Cohen and Evan,
course, yeah.
like Dawn, that we call our heroes.
2 very important sides to the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's really the why we do what we do. But the journey's not over. People like Cohen and Evan have to constantly take anti-rejection drugs for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And it's why it's so important to exercise, to eat right.
So that's actually why I'm here. I spoke with Rhonda, who's the dietitian at BC Children's Hospital. She told me all about the nutritional needs of kids who have had transplants, and I've actually got a recipe right here. Are you guys hungry? Yeah? Should we have a snack? Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Awesome people, fantastic work. Really, really heart-touching stuff. If you want to find out more, davidfosterfoundation.com. Check it out. There's lots of ways you can help if you're interested. Let's get started with our first recipe. Now, this is based on a traditional Swiss muesli. It's my own interpretation of that. Happens to be what the kids were enjoying at the atrium where we just were. So let's get into it. Really, really basic, really simple. We're going to start off with some plain yogurt, okay? It's important that it's plain because if you don't get the plain stuff, you're getting a bunch of extra sugar that you just don't need. So we're going to start off with some plain yogurt in our bowl. All right, so what we're going to do here is just get a couple cups worth of yogurt in our bowl, and then we're going to flavor it ourselves. And we're going to do a few things, actually. We've got some oats here, and what the oats do is give it a nice texture. So really what you do is you make this kind of ahead of time and let it sit for a couple of hours at least, preferably overnight. And it gets really nice and thick because of those oats pulling up some moisture. And what you can also do is add some nuts and seeds. There's lots of different choices depending on what you like. So, for me, chia seeds, fantastic. Lots of fiber, omega-3s. Sunflower seeds, nice touch. Hemp hearts, sure, why not? They're fantastic as well. So by adding these nuts and seeds, we're really bringing up the healthy fat profile of our yogurt. Now, what about a little bit of vanilla? Can't go wrong with some vanilla. A little splash of that. Now, sweetness, optional, but as I mentioned, the yogurt is sugar-free, plain, no sugar added. A little bit of maple syrup just to get a bit of sweetness in there. And for me, a nice clean sweetener. All right, so let's shred some apple to add to our yogurt now. Just gonna get some apple, washed of course. Got a nice organic Gala apple here, and I'm just gonna shred until I hit to the core. And then I'm gonna quarter turn. And again, till I get to the core, and then another quarter turn. And the last one. And that's how you do that. A couple of extra swipes and we'll have gotten everything off of this apple. So now, that just goes right into our yogurt. There we go. Now our bowl's getting pretty full here, as you can see. I would like to do another apple, but we're running out of room, so we'll just call that done. All right, so let's stir this up. Get everything nicely incorporated. And another option I just thought of, which I do sometimes, cinnamon. Make sure that's cinnamon. It is. Okay. You could go heavy-handed if you love your cinnamon. Get that all stirred up, and then we'll let that, you know, ideally sit maybe overnight in the refrigerator. You can make this in a large batch and then eat it over several days because it's just fantastic. And as you can see, you know, loaded with lots of great stuff. So this stage, we'll say, well, let's just pretend, okay? Well, let's pretend that this has been sitting overnight. So then maybe it's breakfast time, and I'm gonna get myself a nice bowl of my beautiful Swiss muesli that I've made. And then how about I'll finish it off with a few lovely blueberries. Fresh, frozen, whatever. These are kind of half defrosted. And there we have a fantastic nutrition-loaded bowl to start your day. Awesome breakfast. Love this. Gonna give it a try right now, in fact. Great. This is just, you know, delicious. There you have it. That's our Swiss muesli. Next up, we're going to work on a 24-hour no-knead bread. Whole wheat, no-knead bread. Delicious. You're going to love it. All right. So, you may not know this, but making your own bread is so simple and so delicious. We're gonna do a bread right now, and I'm gonna show you just how easy it is. All right, so first off, we need some warm water. I've got some room temperature water here, and I'm gonna add the hot water to it. I need 2.5 cups. My measuring cup only goes up to 2, so that's the extra half. We'll get this into our mixing bowl. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our yeast warming up, proofing, coming to life, okay? But also, the yeast likes a little bit of food, so we're gonna give it some honey. So we'll just drop a tablespoon of honey into there, and stir it in. So not only is the honey gonna give a little bit of food for our yeast to develop, but it's also gonna add a nice flavor. Okay, so we'll just let that kind of do its thing, bloom, so to speak, for a little bit, and we'll measure out our flour. Now, in terms of flour, you can do this 100% whole wheat, or you can do a little blend, some white flour and whole wheat flour. We usually do the 100% whole wheat in our house, but if you want to, just lighten it up a little bit. You could do like 3/4 whole wheat with just a little bit of white. That's a good way to go. That should probably do it. So now we'll add in our salt. Stir that in. Make sure everything's dissolved, and then in goes the flour. We're almost done, by the way. And now all we need to do is stir this up. All right, so now comes the hard work. We're gonna stir this up until it's incorporated. Remember, this is a no-knead bread. So this right here is the hard part. Whew, I'm sweating. I'm having a hard time here. Oh, my shoulder's burning. Oh man. Can I finish it? Wait, I forgot the sunflower seeds. It's gonna need some more stirring. Almost there. Oh. I did it. That was tough. I'm just kidding. It was actually really easy. Okay, so that's it for the first stage of the bread making process. So now that our relatively wet dough here is all mixed, nicely incorporated, we're gonna give it about 18 to 20 hours covered, like so, off in the corner of the kitchen, a nice cool place. I'm gonna need a little bit of this as well. All right, so we're gonna need that in a little bit. We'll also need a little bit of space here because we do need to fold our dough over a couple of times before it goes into our dish. So what we're gonna do is just dust our working area here with a little bit of flour, and then we're gonna turn out our dough. So let's get this nicely covered so our dough doesn't stick to the countertop. And then we'll turn it out. So it just needs to be released from the edges, like so. And as you can see, it's still a fairly wet dough. Not quite as wet as when we first started. So all we're gonna do now is fold and press, fold and press. And we're gonna do that 2 more times. Give it a little bit more flour if it's needed, if you feel like it's kind of sticking a little bit. Fold and press. Fold and press. And then what we're gonna do is just put it into the rough shape of the casserole dish that we're gonna bake it in. Okay? And that's it. So this oval shape is now ready to go into our casserole dish. So now let's get the casserole dish ready for our bread. That butter from before, remember? All we're gonna do is just rub about a tablespoon of it or so all along the sides of our dish and the bottom. A little bit more for the bottom there. And just, you want a nice even coat, but a light coat of butter, which will help prevent the dough from sticking. It'll release once it gets to a certain point in the baking. And finally, just sprinkle that with a little bit of flour as well. Okay, and now transfer our dough right into there. Now we want to let this rise. Probably take about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. And what will happen is, it'll go from this size and it'll roughly double. It takes a little bit of practice kind of getting a feel for when it's ready, but generally about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, kind of depending on the heat of your kitchen, time of year, etc. And then it'll be ready to go into the oven. So what we would do is proof it with our lid on here. And once you think it's almost ready, it's just getting pretty close, you're like, yeah, maybe just a little bit longer, and we're gonna turn on the oven. 475 is the temperature, okay? And we're gonna bake it with the lid on. Once the oven comes up to temperature, we'll put it in. We're happy with how it's proofed. We'll put it in, bake it for ½ an hour with the lid on, okay? I set the timer on my microwave. When that timer goes off, I open up the oven, take the lid off, and let it go for about another 20 minutes or so. And when the bread's done, give it a little knock on it, and it should feel really firm and kind of give like almost like a hollow kind of knocking noise. And then you're good to go. So then the bread comes out of the oven, transfer it to a cooling rack, and make sure, this is the hard part, this is the hardest part, make sure you don't cut into it for at least 20 minutes or so, because the bread will actually finish cooking after it comes out of the oven. So here we have yesterday's loaf. And what I love about baking your own bread is you can cut, really thin slices or thick slices, whatever you want. For me, I don't try to eat a lot of bread in my diet. It's kind of a supplement, so I generally slice them a little bit thinner, but if you're down with the thick slices, then you can go for it. And you can see these are pretty big, so, what we'll do is cut the whole loaf up just like this. Stuff them into a bag and toss them in the freezer. And it freezes beautifully, comes out of the freezer and into the toaster, great. You can see the sunflower seeds in there. This one I actually added some raw quinoa into it just to give that a try. Love it. Love baking my own bread. Such a fun process. Now, you might be wondering, why cut it up and freeze it? Well, because what I was touching on earlier, I try to not eat too much bread. And guess what? If there's a fresh loaf of bread on the countertop, heaven knows I will be cutting one too many slices every day. So there you have it. 24-hour, no-knead bread. So simple and easy. I encourage you to try. Next up, we're going to finish it off with some orange creamsicle. And we're rolling. Let's get into our popsicles. So orange creamsicle is exactly what we're doing. I'm going to cut the top and the bottom off my orange here. Okay, like so. And then I'm going to start cutting the skin off. So what I'm going to do, similar to like a melon is how I'm doing this. And now that I've got it started, you kind of have a little guideline here of where you need to make your cut. You want to get all of that white part, the pith, off of the orange. Otherwise, we're going to get that bitter flavor into our orange creamsicles, and we don't want to do that. What we'll do is we're going to cut it in half and then just get that little bit of white stuff that ends up in the center of the orange, because that's going to contribute to some bitterness as well. Okay, and then this is ready to pop into the blender. We might need another one, but I think we'll be good. So this is going to go into the blender along with a touch of vanilla. All right, so just give it a splash of vanilla and then blend that up. Once you're convinced that that is nice and smooth and well chopped up, pureed, we're just going to pour into our popsicle molds. So this we're going to fill up about halfway because we've got our orange done, but we also need our creamsicle. So this is the orange part. So how do we do the creamsicle? Well, let's find out. Just going to fill those up about halfway. All right, so let's get the creamsicle portion of our orange creamsicle going here. And we've got some plain yogurt once again. This time though, it's not the regular yogurt, it's the Greek yogurt, the really thick and rich stuff. High fat as well, which for me on the day-to-day I don't usually do, just because it's a lot of extra calories. But for this process, because we're making creamsicles, that extra fat really comes in handy and giving it a really nice texture when it's frozen. So we've got plain Greek yogurt once again. We're going to add in our own sweetness with some maple syrup once again. We'll stir that in. Get that maple syrup incorporated. And then we just scoop our yogurt into there and fill up the rest of the mold with the yogurt. Right up to the top. And it pushes itself into the middle of the pop a little bit. But we end up with this cool little kind of half and half thing. And then on go your molds. So you want to give them a good 4 or 5 hours to freeze completely. If you're lucky like me, you might have some pretty darn cool molds from which to pull your ready-made frozen orange creamsicle from. Hey, how about that? Got a little scuba diver here. And Oh, it's a fishy. Look at a little fishy and a scuba diver. How about that? Hey, isn't that cute? I think I'm gonna have a scuba diver. So good. You know what? You're not gonna make your kid not want ice cream, but there's a better way. We've got an orange here with some Greek yogurt and a little bit of maple syrup and a touch of vanilla. 4 ingredients and whole foods, you know. Much better way to go. So for me, this is a hit. Just tidying up after 3 delicious recipes today. Fit for anybody, you, me, even an organ donor recipient. Delicious recipes. We started off with the customizable Swiss muesli. From there we went on to a 24-hour no-knead bread, and we finished it up with a great little snack, orange creamsicles. All of those recipes, countrygrocer.com. They're there for you, along with hundreds of others. And if you want some more information on the David Foster Foundation, davidfosterfoundation.com. Thanks for being with us, and see you next time.
Country Grocer.